Welcome to another episode of the Sealess Villains Podcast, your cultivators of the comic culture. I'm your host, AJ the Comic Collector. Tonight I'm here with Red, and we've got a special guest tonight, writer and creator of The Untamed, A Sinner's Prayer, also an avid tea drinker and president of Stranger Comics, Sebastian A. Jones.
Hey guys.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Great to see you guys. Thanks so much for having me on. It's I really appreciate it.
No, man, it's our pleasure. It is our honor to have someone of your stature on our show.
Stature, dude. I'm a skinny dude. What are you talking about?
So we don't want to take too much of your time. So how about we just cut to a little bit of a history about yourself and essentially how you got into comics.
How I got into comics? It's a great question. So I suppose the beginnings of Stranger Comics was I had been playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons since I was a boy. A lot of live action role playing, collecting comics, just being a super geek, and thoroughly enjoying creating stories in the role-playing games.
Right.
And also just being an avid comic collector and reader when I was a youngster. And I had ran a record label with my family for a number of years. And when we wound that business down, I didn't really want to start another company, but what I wanted to do was put out these stories and these characters that had been with me for many, many years. And so I created a couple of stories, and I shopped them around to a few publishing companies. And I think, they kind of saw me as some of them were very cool, some were very nice, and some were not. But I think they saw me as just a kid off the street, lucky to walk in with a project. And what I found was, I was like, I need to start a company again just to protect the vision of what I was trying to create and the intentions and ambitions and vulnerabilities of the characters that I was that had been with me for so long. And because they, and a lot of them were folks of color and and so on, like I didn't want it to be a company that would be like, oh, this is cool and hip because it's Black History Month, I'm gonna put this shit out real quick.
Right.
I needed to honor the art that I was creating and the characters and the representation that would lend itself to this medium. So we started Stranger Comics, and that was it.
Awesome. Now, I know that you had said that you had shopped your ideas to other publishers.
Mm-hmm.
Was it ever a serious thought of like maybe going with a publisher, or right from the get-go you were like, I'm just going to do my own company and do everything?
No, I mean, so what I'm saying is like, I think a bit of a control freak in some areas, but I love to collaborate and learn. I'm a big believer that my old man used to say, just work with people smarter than you. And so this is a new medium. And I was excited, and I'd written liner notes in my albums, and my mum thought I was terrible. Like, can I write? I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So I was just eager to learn. I was excited to learn from other folks. So I was fine with other companies if they didn't just see it as something, as a surface, something cosmetic, and something that's like, oh, we can just chuck this out. And I needed to work with someone that shared the same kind of love and energy and effort for what I was trying to create, whether that's naive or whatever. It just came back around to the only way I felt comfortable after a few experiences was just doing it myself. And
right.
After you run a company in the record business for a number of years, it's daunting and exhausting. And I was also doing a lot of commercial acting and modeling back then as well, and that was paying the bills, and and teaching a bit, just is being busy and full in coming off the record business. It's like, it's a daunting thing to create a company where you know that you're going to spend zero time with your loved ones while you follow your dream. So there's a selfishness and an attrition and a grind that is a lot of times unfair to those who are around you. And then you put all this financial risk and strain and spiritual strain and are you any good, and all these things. So it's an incredibly difficult thing to build a company from scratch.
Right. Now, a lot of our listeners, they are actually all our listeners, they're all comic book lovers and creators. And I'm sure some of them are aspiring creators.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. What would you give them as far as advice if they wanted to create their own comic series? You recommend them going the same path and just creating their own publishing company?
I mean, I think it's different strokes for different folks in the sense that I never knock, and it's very easy for people like, oh, you did this, you're a sellout. Oh, you're doing this, and blah, blah, blah. You don't know what someone is dealing with in their actual home life, in real life situations. You might have, a kid that needs to go through school. You might have medical bills to pay. You might have, I think for folks that want to be in charge of their own destiny and so on as much as they can, and be possible, having your own publishing company is great. But my recommendation, if for folks that do that, because I see this now and again, and I don't want to I feel like I sound like some arrogant douchebag, but the reality is when we are comic lovers, a lot of times we're nostalgic people and we're in love with certain things. We're stuck in certain time zones and time warps and eras of bygone and so on. And we go, I want to create this. And we don't get our checks and balances. So for a lot of independents, not a lot, I'll just say some independents, if you don't work with people that will slam your shit into the ground and go, this isn't working and this is why, and you're not brave enough to be vulnerable, then you shouldn't do this at all. Because if you go into an established publisher, that's what they will do, or they won't hire you because you might not be at that level yet.
Right.
You might not have, been there, or they might not see it, and you're like, well, fuck you, I just want to rock this myself, and that's fine. But even if you do that, you really have to be very willing to take a beating from people that aren't just your friends, your mums, other collectors, like, oh my God, this is the dope shit, blah, blah, blah. And we all kind of do a circle jerk thing. And it's like, that's not gonna do anything, because if I'm a fan, right, I'm your regular Joe fan, and I go, I am used to, if I got $20 in my pocket and I already know what comics I'm going to get, I already know I'm going to be spoiled by $1 billion corporation paying for the top tier talent to put in my pocket. If you don't feel like you can, and I'm not saying to compete with the exact aesthetic or the exact copycat, whatever, but the concept of a philosophy of quality, of it has to hit a certain standard. You're a fan that you're now desensitized because you've grown up in this medium being spoiled with incredible creators. And now you're spoiled again with TV shows and movies, and you're desensitized and you're distracted, and you're on Facebook, and then you're on an Instagram app, and you're thinking like, am I going to put fucking dog ears Instagram app today? And now I'm worried about how I look, and la, 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 la. And so you're competing with attention, and you're competing with Instagram celebrities, moments, You're competing with um, the desensitivity and apathy of the general nowadays consumer. So
Uh-huh.
you really, if you're gonna rock this, you can't fuck about, because that's not fair to yourself and your wallet and your budget and your family. If you're gonna do it, you have to literally treat it like a child that you have to nurture and go, I gotta make sure this kid is nurtured every single day. Otherwise, you're in trouble, in real trouble, and you've just like, oh my god, I spent all this money. And I think the misconception too is, I know I'm rambling a bit, but there's a misconception now, I feel like, in comics, that folks are getting into comics to make money and thinking it's going to be the next big TV show or film,
Uh-huh.
and go like, oh my god, and you see it, and I'm like, you don't get into comics for that reason. If you want to get into get into filming,
Right, right.
if you get into comics because you love the comic medium, and anyone that knows, in the comic medium that you love, do not expect to make lots of money. You're doing it because you love the medium. You're satiating the storyteller in you. That's what I think we, now and again, a lot of folks forget. They get dazzled by the glitz and the glam and the, and the what ifs. And I think in this day and age too, we're all looking for a get rich quick scheme, because we're all struggling in life in a big time way, and
Right.
COVID and whatever the fucking came before and so on. That we look to this as we go, this comic, oh my God, if this became a film, I know this. If this became this, this is my way out. This is my lottery ticket. And you're like, you're in it for the wrong reasons there. Yeah, or that could be the right reason, and that's fine. But you're going about the craft the wrong way, of the actual creation. Create to satiate your own, your spirit, and then hopefully all the rest kind of starts to fall into place somewhat.
Right. Now, I know that you're the founder of Stranger Comics, and it's got its own universe. For a lot of our listeners who are not familiar with Stranger Comics, could you give us essentially the world of Stranger Comics and
Yeah,
what it's all about?
for sure. Thank you. Yeah. So what we're kind of most well known for is this fantasy universe called Asunda, Asunda, and it's kind of like, if you've loved Lord of the Rings, if you've loved Game of Thrones, if you've loved fantasy, that kind
Uh-huh.
of like medieval Robert E. Howard type stuff. That's kind of essentially the that's what our stories are based in. And as a young guy, years and years ago, I I thought, how wonderful would it be to create a Marvel universe of fantasy? I'd
Uh-huh.
never really, and then also do it. I'm a mixed dude, so kind of also do it from a very kind of multicultural uh, way, and not because it's timely and hashtags like diversity, the word diversity is trending and all that kind of shit. Do it from an authentic place, because you know it needs to happen, whether shit's trending or not. This is a. I'm not here to create anything timely. I want to create timeless material, and because
I
I don't
like
have.
that. I
Thank
like
you.
that. Yeah.
Because I don't have like Marvel's pockets. Obviously, I'm an independent as fuck kind of guy. You can't like go, okay, I'm doing this and this and this and this and this, and oh, we're building this universe. It's been a grind, bro. So it's but even within that, it allowed me to have real patience and try and tell the best story I could for each book that I put out, and see and enjoy the journey of how these stories do intertwine, and these characters do connect and come together and fall apart, and and play on really, the other thing I'll stress is I wanted to play, even though I've got this backdrop and I've been creating this world for 30 years, the most kind of important thing for me was to be able to see myself or have folks see themselves in the stories. And I don't just mean from a diversity or an inclusionary perspective, which is extremely important and a huge part of it, but to see them from a universal human perspective, like, um, you know, we all want a second chance, and what would we do with a second chance? Men that struggle between love and lust, and can a man tell the difference? And when he finally learns the truth of what love is it too late? And redemption to salvation, themes that affect us in a really kind of core, fundamental, spiritual and soulful level. And in these stories, we're able to kind of underline and bold those themes and those dramatic narratives quite a bit. So have dramatic narratives. So you've got to, so when you read a Stranger Comics book, again, I sound like an obnoxious douchebag, but when you read a book, my hope is you don't just be like, oh, this is cool shit, and just flick through the pages. Stop. It's like stop and have a look at the world around you. Stop moving for a second. The art is beautiful. Really take a look at why the panels are placed that way. There's no dialogue in these 4 pages? Why? All these various things. Why the panels specifically like this? Really pay attention to it. So anyway, yeah, dramatic narratives in a fantasy world. There you go.
Right.
I mean, I know the comic universe right now is oversaturated with superhero stories. You taking the other route as far as like the fantasy world is really a refreshing take.
Thanks, man.
Where do you see your titles going in the next 15 or 20 years? It's like they're evolving in story wise.
I think next year you will never see me again, and I think I'm going to be in the Bahamas, and I don't care. No. Where do I see them? I talk to my guys about this. When the HBO, we have an HBO deal and it's in development, and if it gets greenlit, fantastic. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But the bottom line is, I told the guys, I was like, I've realized I never want to be a guy that puts out hundreds of titles every year. Doesn't matter how much money I've got, or don't have, or do have. Doesn't matter. That I want to continue to put out a few titles every year that have real substance. So I know Niobe's trajectory. Right now we have Niobe, she is life, she is death. We're going to have Niobe, she is spirit. We're going to have Niobe, she is God. And every twist and turn that Niobe takes is going to be something that I think my readers will be like, oh shit, I thought I knew it was coming, but you don't.
Right.
And the same with the Untamed. Sorry, the Untamed, we play with the elements. The Untamed, A Sinner's Prayer. The Sinner's Prayer was named after a Ray Charles blues tune, and The Killing Floor was named after a Skip James blues tune. But the first book has the theme of fire. It's set in a desert. Killing Floor is set by the docks, so water. Next one is Earth in the Ugoma jungle, which ties back into the Dusu storyline. So I play with lots of different levels of things for you to discover, not just Easter eggs in the story, but why did he call it the Untamed? What does the Untamed mean? The Untamed is actually my world of saying Satan. Like, you shouldn't say the word Satan because maybe you'll call upon him. So people in my world call him the Untamed, but it's also a kind of an untamed, rugged storyline. So just whatever it is, the concept of she is life or she is God. For some folks that they might be like, that's some sacrilegious shit. God's a dude. All that kind of stuff. But I like challenging those folks. So I see, to answer your question, Red, I see basically the continuation of these titles growing and blossoming and more spin-offs. I'm working on writing prose as well. More card games and board games and more ways to enjoy. We have a Pathfinder role-playing game for the D&D Pathfinder heads out there. We did with Paizo for Niobe. Just the evolvement of that. And I'm also, before I space this, I'm working on other projects too. Like I have a serial killer comic I'm writing, which
wow, that sounds cool.
Thank you. And it's actually the introduction to my superhero villain universe.
Awesome.
Okay.
And it's like Dexter meets Falling Down in a dark alleyway where the Joker's waiting.
Do you have any sort of time frame on when that could be released?
I'm hoping that I'm going to be rocking a Kickstarter. I finished the script for it, and I've given it to a couple of people to read, and I haven't heard back, so I think they might hate it, which is cool. I like that. That makes me happy. And then so I'll probably my goal is to potentially do a Kickstarter for that this year.
Okay.
And I have another project which I'm kickstarting this year, and that's called Ruining Christmas.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna give you this pitch, all right, guys? This is something completely alien to anything anyone has seen at Stranger Comics. I'm a little nervous about it. It's about two idiot Christmas elves that get the shit beaten out of them by the rottenest kid in all the land.
Okay.
And they lose Santa's hat, the source of all Christmas magic, and they have to go on a buddy mission to get it back. But I've written it very much like, do you remember the old Guy Ritchie gangster movies, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch?
Yes.
Okay, so it's very much like that. So it's like, he's a fucking snowflake. You know, I wouldn't trust him to shovel reindeer shit. You know, it is so British and irreverent. It's like if Family Guy meets South Park was done in a very British Guy Ritchie rock and roller-ish gangstery thing, but set in the North Pole, and it has also my voice, so it has a very it's me essentially,
And without the sex and drugs, right?
I actually don't do sex or drugs. I don't, I just do puzzles and drink my tea. But this comic is my vicarious 1990s comedy, and I'm very nervous because I know people are like, "What? I thought you were this kind of bloke," and I'm like, "Yeah, I am, but I'm this kind of bloke too." We're all three-dimensional kind of people. So I'm hoping people don't go, "What is this?" But it's a lot of fun. I hope it's a bit of a cathartic release too. We're going to drop the Kickstarter for you guys listening December 1st.
Okay.
And it'll be December 1st through the 25th. And I'm working with this artist, Eli, out of Los Angeles, and Daryl. Daryl is my layout artist and head CCO of everything we've ever done. We created Ruining Christmas together. And I'm telling you, you will not see it coming. The merchandising, all that kind of stuff. Honestly,
I can just see it now.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
And this is right up, I'm pretty sure this is right up Red's type of humor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of sick-minded, but come on now. I gotta read the book first.
Perfect. Sick-minded alike. No, I'm hoping you'll love it. If you like that kind of humor, but it's also to talk about the layers, right, or depth or whatever, to sound all obnoxious again. I feel like, I say this with all due respect, and I sound probably horrible and crass, but I feel like the spirit of giving has taken it up the shitter with a 10-inch Yule log. So that's why what we have with Ruining Christmas is really an attack on the apathy of parents and the entitlement of kids. So it's really like, I feel like, and I'm using Christmas as the backdrop of what that reality of today is, and obviously not everybody, not everybody, but I think what's happened is we've been so quick because we're dealing with a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, social media, all the rest of it. And we want to have this quick thing of feeling good and feeling good about ourselves, that we're quick to cancel, we're quick for this and that and the other. And we've become insular. And with that, it breeds kind of a lack of awareness to have poke fun at yourself and breathe a little bit, take the edge off just a little bit. And so this is hopefully a cathartic kind of release that we can all have a bit of a giggle, while also planting the seed as opposed to, ramming down someone's throat, pardon the pun, but, like it's very much like take a step back, breathe, have a laugh, but recognize that we've become all a little selfish, all a little, what about me? And that's what this story is going to be about.
Do you touch upon the commercialization of Christmas as well?
We do a little bit, but not too much. I think that is a little bit of low-hanging fruit. I understand that stuff, and the hallmark of the holidays and those types of things, but we wanted to get wild with it. Like, case in point, Hitler was the last guy to get a lump of coal. And FDR said to Santa, you got to knock this shit off. So we enter the nuclear age, and Santa has invented cheer gas and with his elves in the factory. And cheer gas is when Santa can't power up his magic sled and tractor, because he's really a tractor driver, and go across the world and drop off gifts because there's not enough love in the world. He needed love to be endorsed, worshipped, right, like a god, to be able to be powered up to go and heal the world with gifts.
Right.
That's in the toilet. So he had to have the factory elves invent cheer gas. And what cheer gas is, it's a quick fix. It's the elves go in these blast missions on the naughty list and mace these kids in the face with cheer gas to give them a temporary happy fix just over the holidays. And that's the play on, Mom, I said an Xbox One, not an Xbox 360.
Yeah.
So, oh, shut up. Here's this. Okay, and here's some more ice cream. It's this. Let me feed your apathetic or entitled hunger, so I can go about my life, and that only lasts for so long.
Right.
So there's no consequences. So this is a consequence. So those are kind of the themes that we play with. It's and in a wild way, in a really fun, and it's just super fun. It's super fun.
But when you take a step back, there's a deeper meaning to the whole story, though. Yeah.
And I think that's for me, that's what it always. It's going to be funny because people are going to see some of the artwork, honestly, and some of the merchandise, some of the things, and go, "Oh my God, I'm not down." Right? No problem. I get it. But I think that's kind of a reality of the current state of where we're at in medium, is we're quick to judge. Like I do a post on, let's say a new comic or a variant. I go, here it is, and in the caption, this is where you can get it. And it's always people go in the comments, where can I get it? I'm like, it's in the freaking caption. Sometimes it's in the flyer of the announcement. And that's our reality. People don't take the time, a lot of times, to read, and then the marketing folks and the big companies, they realize that they don't give a fuck because they're just, they've got their machine and distribution, they've got to hit their quotas and whatnot. So they'll market purposely to the people that just go, I see that flash, pair of titties, this or that, whatever. Okay, I'm in, catchy phrase, catchy lingo, catchy this. Okay, on to the next. Next app. Next TikTok, next this, next that, next that. And that is what I wanted to do, was pump the brakes, stop, take your time, have a read, hope you enjoy it. If it's not for you, no harm, no foul, all good. There's enough other folks out there that do that you know, the quick grab your stuff. And there are some amazing indie creators as well that, you know, I'm sure, you know, just create stuff there's just wonderful stuff out there, you know. Crescent City Monsters, Russell Nolte stuff, uh, the Were Spider stuff. I mean, you know, David Walker shit. There's a lot of great stuff that's being created for folks to really, you know, sit and be patient with.
Right.
None of
Now,
the non-superhero stories. I mean, I got this one right here, which is sex criminals, and
What a great looking cover.
Anthony's the one that got me onto this book. It's about criminals having sex to stop time. It's like, who would have thought that?
I love that already. I just that's wow. Who would have thought that? A couple of horny blokes. I don't know.
Chip Zdarsky and Matt Fraction.
There you go. God bless them. You know.
we've talked about you doing the Kickstarter stuff.
Sure.
I see a lot of independent publishers and writers. They try to do the Kickstarter,
Yes.
but there's so many people who are doing Kickstarter comic books.
Mm.
How do you? And with you, you've been established already. So people who know Stranger Comics, they're going to support it. But someone who's an unknown, do you think that going the Kickstarter route is feasible for them? If
100%.
really,
Yeah, I do. I mean, listen, bro. Like, when did you hear about Stranger Comics?
honestly, it probably was WonderCon. You guys have already had one of the bigger booths already, so.
So so 2009, we were in a booth we shared with, I think, like 10 other publishers.
Okay.
And we had one comic book, The Untamed. And we went back in the lab. We came out in 2015 with Niobe and The Untamed hardcover. No one knew about us at all, whatsoever, right? We did a few kids' books. They did okay. But no one knew us as a comic company, ironically. And the only time that people knew about us is when we dropped Niobe, thanks a lot in part to my co-author, Amanda Stenberg. Folks will know her. She played Rue in the Hunger Games and was the star of The Hate You Give. But, you know, that helped out a lot, without question. But before that happened, in 2015, I did a Kickstarter for the Untamed hardcover. I'd never done a Kickstarter before. I was absolutely terrified. I didn't realize, you know, I had this wonderful lady named Madeline Holly Rising, who spent a couple of hours with me, you know, paid for it, well worth it, brilliant lady. And she walked me through some tips and tricks on how to do this Kickstarter. So, you know, I was, terrified. I needed this to work. I was, you know, not exactly doing well in a lot of areas in my life. And we raised, I think we did 28,000 on our first Kickstarter. And, but what I'll say is I researched a lot and I prepped as well as I prep for any any subsequent Kickstarter, I should say. And I think if the work has been done and you've reached out to other Kickstarter backers, you've reached out to folks, you've talked to folks, you've got friends and family interested, you've done all the checks and balances. It's funny, it's the thing I'm teaching on Sunday to help Kickstarter creators who haven't quite hit that next thing yet. And I'm nervous for this Ruining Christmas one. I don't know if it's going to do as well as the last Kickstarter we did 82,000.
Whoa.
The previous two we did 64 and a bit and 64 and a bit. So we went from 28 to 64, 64 and 82. I'm so incredibly thankful to our followers and supporters and fans and friends and family and anyone that ever spends $1 with us. But to folks that have never done it before, I think it's literally the graft of you take Kickstarter as seriously as you take a full-time job. And it's like I was saying about the creations as well. If you don't treat this like a child, its own child, Kickstarter, as a beast, you will not be successful. It is literally, I mean, this is one of the things when we get off, I have a phone meeting on it, and I've got emails to do and artists to contact and prep work to do and scripts to write and really prep the hell out of this Kickstarter. I mean, I'd be happy if we hit 20K, you know, less than all my other Kickstarters.
What's the bare minimum on that?
On this one, I think we're going to put our minimum up as 10. I think we'll probably put it up as 10 because this is the first time we've done a Kickstarter that hasn't included a hardcover. Obviously, if you've got a hardcover, then you've got potential high reward amounts, so you can get to higher numbers quicker, and those types of things. So, you know, yeah, it's a beast. It's an absolute beast. But I did it with no one knew who I was, and I know other people have too. That, you know, I think folks look to a Facebook post as the only source of marketing and forgetting there's so many different ways you can market if you start thinking laterally. And I'm not just talking about, it'd be great if CBR did a post on it. It'd be great if this. All those folks did it for me back in the days when I had a mandala attached to my next one. Like, oh yeah, we'll do this because, you know, she was doing very well as an actress. But a lot of those media companies, they don't like to promote Kickstarters. They're anti that stuff. Some of them, you know.
Right.
But for me, it's like, you know, Keanu Reeves just did one with, you know, Berserker, right?
Berserk, yeah.
Berserk or some shit. You know, like, it's a way for fans. Fans don't give a fuck. They just want to get it in their hands. And if it's a way that you've pre-sold a special edition comic and brought awareness to your fan base and to your medium as a comic guy, like I have fans that have found me through Kickstarter. That anytime I put a comic out in shops, they'll go and buy it in their local comic store, but they wouldn't have known about it unless they'd found me and backed my Kickstarter. So I believe in it for sure.
Awesome. I wanted to go back to your current universe in the Stranger Comics universe.
Sure.
With Niobe, I'm just curious, is there an ending in your head?
No.
Okay. So this could potentially go on forever.
My hope is, I mean, look, you've got thoughts where I have thoughts for each character. Here's the thing is, I had a thought for the Stranger in the Untamed. I knew exactly where he was going, right? We have 2 volumes out. We're working on the 3rd volume, which is a reminder I've got to contact my artist. I have 6 or 7 volumes or something planned for that. I mean, I'm 47 now. That might be when I'm 60 by the time that shit's finished, right?
Right.
And within that, I had an idea for the Stranger of what was going to happen to him. In writing Niobe Shear's death, which storyline, age-wise, happens, the Niobe solo titles happens after all the Untamed theoretically is done. I was like, oh, I'm going to bring Stranger into this. So on that timeline, I thought I was completely done with him as a character. That's the beauty of like the never say never with the involvement of, you don't want to write yourself, to me, I don't want to write myself into a corner to say, you know, like, yes, I do have an idea of where I think Niobe will end up being, but I've got so many other stories to tell in the meantime. And then what if after I might be like 60 and be like, oh, she's now, you know, the Empress on the throne and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. But what if I'm sitting like, yeah, she's Empress on the throne, and she gets overthrown, and then this happens. You know, those are the things I'm actually excited about. The unknown is the exciting thing.
Okay, awesome.
You are the god of your universe, so you can create whatever you want.
Exactly, yeah.
And the production assistant too. Good Lord.
Going back to the Untamed for our listeners who are not familiar with the entire like storyline,
Sure.
could you give us a brief, I guess, when someone who's going to, let's say, your booth, just the way
Sure.
we spoke offline yesterday,
Sure.
and you're trying to let them.
Oh yeah, you want the pitch, the Untamed pitch. Okay, so
Well,
here we go.
we want the listeners to hear it.
I know
They need to get the book.
Please, listeners, get the book. Okay, so I'm going to drop an octave. Here we go.
Okay.
This is a story about a man who's stuck in purgatory. And after 10 years, the devil comes to him and he says, I will give you 7 days to reap the 7 souls that murdered you and your family. He says, well, sign me up. I have nowhere else to be. And he takes a drifter's return to a one-horse town in a huge world. And as his memory comes back in broken shards, he realizes he was a bad man and maybe he deserved to die. But now he's on a path, right? To save his family, to save their souls. On his path of vengeance, he meets a little elven girl called Niobe. And she reminds him of how old his murdered daughter would have been had she lived, giving this man a second chance to be a good man, even a father. But he only has 7 days. The kicker is, what if she's one of the 7 souls he has to collect? And the devil set the whole thing up just to find her. Would you damn your family to save the world? Because if Niobe can stay alive in the Untamed, a sinner's prayer, maybe she'll grow up to become our world's Luke Skywalker, the face of our franchise.
There you have it, folks. I have never heard a better pitch than that.
I'm inspired.
Thank you.
Are you looking to like get into digital media as well? Digital comic books?
We have our stuff is on Comixology. So if you guys want to read, if you guys want to get the hardcovers, the trade paperbacks, the single issues, you can get them off my website or bug your local comic book store. Support those guys. If you want the rare stuff, hit me up on my website. If you're a digital reader, just grab my stuff at Comixology, Stranger Comics. You'll find it all.
Awesome.
That's what I'm doing tonight.
Yay! Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Have people pitched to you and asked them to put their books out for in Stranger Comics?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, all the time. It's a hard thing because we're a small independent company and there's only so many hours in a day, and I don't want to be mean or whatever, but I only have the budget that's in my pockets, and I'm gonna put my shit out.
Right.
If I'm gonna just be very honest, unless someone is potentially coming to me with something that's finished, and it feels right and it fits our company logo, I built Stranger Comics in this kind of way to say, I feel like I'm the most up my own arse guy at this point, but whatever. So basically like a Hallmark, right?
Uh-huh.
If you put the Stranger Comics brand on something, whether it's a kid's book, a dick and fart comedy book, a dark fantasy brooding, high concept, highbrow, whatever it is, it's got to have its own sense of self, its own purpose, and its own dignity and reality. I'm not interested in doing sound-alike shit. I don't care about being samey as this and copying that. I actually have no interest in that at all. And my built the company to say, I am a huge a snob when it comes to music. So I'm like, I want to Blue Note Records. They had beautiful music, the best album covers. It just felt like you were getting it. You're getting something special here.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Taschen. If you could pick up a Taschen book, you know what you've got in your hands. It was the same with HBO back in the days, like Deadwood, Sopranos, The Wire. You know, you just knew if it was on that channel, it's the best of the best. And I was like, I don't have deep pockets at all, and I've had massive struggles as an independent guy. Each convention feeling like, oh, can we make it? But if I'm gonna put something out, I want it to be at the very least the best I can do, because I think that not only serves my soul, but it also honors someone that's spending their hard-earned $4 on a comic book when they could spend it on Spider-Man or something that they already know. And why give me a shot? Why is someone going to give me a shot and they've never heard of my shit before? They might see a pretty piece of artwork on the cover and like, oh, that's some dope shit. I like the look of that. But still, $4 is a fortune. And folks, yeah, I know when a guy comes to a convention or just people already kind of know what they want to spend their money on.
Right.
Taking a leap of faith into something brand new, and to anyone that wants to be a creator out there, taking that leap of faith from a consumer perspective means they're not spending it on something that they were going to spend it on, or now they're over budget. So it is our responsibility and have the decency to do the best we can. I don't like the stuff of like, I want to just crank this shit out. That's just not my bag,
Right.
And some folks might think my shit sucks, and it doesn't. It's fucking great, but it's, but that's fine too. But no one will be able to look at my stuff and go, oh, that motherfucker didn't put his entire being an A plus for effort. At least I hated the story. An A plus for effort. Yeah. The effort is there.
How many times do you go through rounds of constructive criticism before you cut it off and say, well, I'm gonna write it this way. I'm gonna take your thoughts and ideas. I'm gonna implement them in the book.
We do a shitload, bro. Like, and it's right up until the last minute, even in press. Just before it goes to press, it's So I work with two guys mainly, Daryl May and Joshua Cozy, and they've been with me since the get-go of Stranger. Josh was, he worked in business affairs at Summit. He was a younger editor at Top Cow for a bit. We used to play HeroClix. One of the most intellectually gifted, big brain, obstinate, stubborn bastards I've ever had the fortune of loving. Just an amazing, amazing man. And is as anally retentive, judgmental, attention to detail as me, and we squabble like crazy. And Josh is very hard-nosed, whereas Daryl is off the charts genius in another way, where he is he thinks like is a very kind of heart on his sleeve, high emotion driven. Josh is very like anchor of the ship. Daryl brings the storm, and I'm, I guess, driving the boat between both of them. And with that, I think we've got something special. I think we've been lucky to be also friends. We trust each other. We know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we assist in those areas. And we're all extremely confident, but don't have the ego to be like, hey, it's got to be my idea. We don't care about that shit at all.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's much better. Yeah, okay, great. Let's do that.
Well, I know you've got about 10 more minutes, so I'll try to ask you a few more questions.
Shoot.
If Marvel or DC will ask you, they say, hey, would you consider writing Spider-Man, or would you consider writing Batman?
Yeah, that'd be great fun, of course. I mean, these are amazing characters, and stretch those muscles and give me a shot. Shit, oh my, fuck. Yeah, that'd be amazing. I love both those characters. I'd be over the moon.
Is there a specific Marvel DC character you would love to write?
Done. The Incredible Hulk. He was my favorite growing up.
Wow.
As a kid.
Okay. All right.
Literally, I'm a really skinny dude, and I would relate to. Banner and, his Just Leave Me Alone, and, just nerdy kind of, and I had, just didn't like to, didn't like to be picked on and those types of things. And then I had a horrible temper when I snapped. And so I really found myself, immersing the psychosis of Banner and what he would deal with. And just the Hulk, I absolutely, is my all-time favorite superhero by a fucking mile. I hate when they do him dirty and it's like, oh, we need to prove that this guy's really tough. All right, let's bring the Hulk in and have him get beaten up. Oh, he must be really tough. He beat the Hulk up. I hate that lazy pedestrian, way of using somebody so tortured and torn and beautiful. And like, I love the fact that he could break the planet. The extremes of that I find are just wonderful. So yeah, I'm a Hulk. I'm Hulk all the way. I didn't like when the Hulk Buster armor. Oh, but the sun came up. I hate all that shit. Oh, okay. Now who's going to beat him up? Okay. Oh, he's beating Thor. Oh, but Thor saw his dad in a dream. Oh, one punch, he's knocked out. Oh, now Thanos. Oh, the movies. The only one that got it right for me was the first Avengers when I was like, oh, that's the fuck. That. Okay, finally. And then after that, it was like, oh no, I guess the Hulkbuster armor must be really good. Jesus, fuck me. I hated that shit.
Where would you take the Hulk mythos if you do have an opportunity to write it?
It's a great question. I think what they did great, and I would probably take it maybe in something similar. I loved the concept of when he went to Planet Scar and the whole very Conan-y kind of vibe. I thought that was a very clever idea. I think the Hulk, it's one of two things. It's really playing with the psychosis of where we're at in today's society, and how kind of archaic and beautifully simple the Hulk himself views things in blacks and whites, and struggling with gray areas of humanity. I love the Gray Hulk and the ruthlessness, and I like some of those types of things. But I think getting back to some of the core fundamentals of feeling like a man out of place, even a hero out of place, and those unloved heroes, I love that stuff. Because I think those are also the things that, as fathers or men or women or whatever, that feel unseen or unheard, I think the metaphor that the Hulk can bring is when you're not seen or not heard or not loved, how does that make you feel? How does it make you react? I think they touched on it well, a lot of times too with Ben Grimm, those types of things. But I think you could even, and This Man, This Monster is probably my most influential one singular comic read. But I think you could really ramp that up. And I think there's a play too, if Hulk wasn't in our day, really emphasizing those types of things, to put him in a completely different era, a real medieval time. What would that look like, in the Dark Ages for real? And him being seen as, the Grendel, the monster, what does that look like? I'm not loved anywhere. The escape to be loved, and then to be even more ridiculed and loathed and so on. And then to find acceptance. I think that was always the beauty. It was, the Hulk really is Beauty and the Beast, isn't it? And it's obviously Frankenstein's monster and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But I think those elements too of Beauty and the Beast with Betty and whatnot is just some of those things, just to digging into those aspects. Because I think also, whether you're gay, straight, bi, queer, blah, blah, and so on, it's, we all feel ugly at times. We all feel whether it's on the surface, whether it's our soul, whether it's not being accepted, not being wanted, you know, um, you know, saying the wrong thing at the wrong time and taking one mistake affecting the rest of your life. I think the Hulk has the opportunity to do all that stuff in a very, you know, obvious medical way. Those types of things. I love that kind of shit.
Okay. Okay, sir. I know we've got just a few short minutes.
Great answer. Great answer there.
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Last two questions.
Shoot.
Any quick advice for any up and coming creators? First question, and then the second question. Obviously, let everyone know where they can reach you, what you're doing, and all the books that you're coming out with. Let all our listeners know.
Awesome. Thank you. Any up and coming advice for up and coming creators? Sure. I would say the first thing is don't wait for inspiration. It's the death of the artist, the death of the creator, the death of the writer. Never wait for inspiration. If you can, realize that your imagination is like exercise. If you don't continue to do it, then it starts to dwindle, it starts to fade, it starts to get caught up in just watching the game and doing other stuff, and it's great to have a balance. At times doing too much of it, you become too blind to your own mistakes. So enjoy taking time off and, getting laid or going for a hike or smelling the flowers and, holding hands, remembering innocence, remembering love, romance, gentle things. But nurture your vision, nurture the reality of what you're trying to create. If you can do just a couple of hours each day, like Hemingway, Spike Lee, like all these guys, they talk about like, just do a bit each day. Stephen King, don't wait for the muse to show up, because while you're in the middle of working, the muse might suddenly go like, oh shit, I'm here. And if you hadn't got your ass out of bed to do a little bit of work, the grind, you wouldn't have found the inspiration. You've created it. You've inspired the moment, as opposed to waiting for the perfect moment. Well, my room wasn't tidy and this and that and the other. So, force that upon yourself. That's I think the biggest advice I can give folks. And I'm guilty of it too. I mean, and this pandemic hasn't helped. It's created so much anxiety. Social media creates so much anxiety. I'm guilty of like getting up in the morning and reaching for my phone. Like, what the fuck am I even doing?
I thought the pandemic would have helped artists.
No, I think it's worse. I mean, for some, yes, for sure. But for artists, I think in general, deal with a lot of, including me, a lot of mental demons and angels and demons waging war in our brains, right? And pandemics, it's a state of politics, no matter what your beliefs are and so on. Arguments with family over politics, arguments over, with friends, folks being canceled, this, that, and the other. Can't rely on this. Oh, I thought I could trust that. All these types of things heighten anxiety to such a degree that it becomes debilitating and immobilizing, that you just you're suddenly stuck. So figuring out little things, like for me was putting on music that calmed me down, music that inspired me, music that made me move or made me feel, good about myself or my beliefs or whatever. Going for the odd walk, remembering to speak to my mum every day, remembering to just do the little things that allow me to feel human and not caught up in the web of despair. That honestly, I was doing a lecture at FAMU, the Historical Black University, and that question was, how do you deal if we deal with depression? Or, like one of the teachers asked, if my students dealt with this, how do you deal with it? And I felt like I understand that. Creators deal with this stuff a lot. It's finding like, oh, here comes the monster of anxiety coming. Here is the monster of depression. Here is the monster, this, thing that's lurking within us. finances, bills are piling up, broke up with my girl, all these things. Oh, am I not good enough? She didn't want me. No one wants me. I feel ugly. I feel, uninspired, uninspiring. Feeling uninspired is terrifying. Terrifying. Like, oh, does that mean I'm just now a couch, a robot, static, inanimate? So how do you get inspiration back? How do you remember what it is to be a dreamer, to be inspired? And one piece of advice, and I'll leave with this and I'll tell you where you guys can find me and all that kind of crap, is, so this mate of mine, he and I were commercial acting. He's now a big movie star. And he was watching my kids. We were doing this audition. And he said, Seb, would you still be writing if you didn't get paid for it? And I was like, yeah, of course. And he said, well, what the fuck are you worried about? And he said, if I don't become a big actor and so on, and he's not into social media, he hates all that stuff. He said, I'll just go back to Texas and I'll just act in local plays because I love the craft of acting. And I never forget it. It's very liberating. He's inspired by the craft. So how do you remember to be inspired to craft what you want to make? Mm-hmm. Then those types of other things help dealing with, like, okay, I feel good about this. It's just like picking up my old art teacher, like, take your sketchbook, go to a river. Even if you suck at art, draw the river, paint, create, because it reminds us of our childlike wonders and dreams and happiness and joy and what could be and what if. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that I think it's very easy to get completely oppressed by.
Right, I understand completely.
And so to answer your second question, you guys can find me at strangercomics.com, and any social media is just at Stranger Comics. So Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Oh, and then we have a very cool Instagram group, Stranger Comics as well. It's a private group, but you join that, you get 10% off anything on the store, and it's everything Stranger Comics related. I used to have, like, folks could post things and I'd be like, yeah, cool, whatever, I don't care. But then I was just like, some of the shit that was posted, I'm like, I don't even believe in this crap. So I find, so there's a couple, and I'm a nice guy. And a couple of weeks ago, I was like, no more. It's got to be Stranger Comics related material, or it's just like, well. So anyway, you can find me at Stranger Comics.
So all our listeners out there, make sure you go to that website and pick up the first, I guess, a volume story would be The Untamed. So
yeah, The Untamed is the first one, and a lot of times people's gateway drug is the Niobe Shear's life book. It's a lighter read. It's not as heavy and thick as far as story. It's maybe in some respects a much more fun read, and is probably my most famous comic. But that's also a fun one to kind of get you started. But if you're a reader, then you can start with The Untamed, A Sinner's Prayer.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you, sir, for being on the show. We hope to have you back sometime soon.
That'd be awesome.
We know that there's going to be a lot of success your way, and we look forward to seeing all of it.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys very much for what you do too, and having me on the show. It really means a lot more than you realize. I think I very, very much appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, guys.
All right. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the C-List Villains Podcast, your cultivators of the comic culture. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and Spotify. All you got to do is search for C-List Villains. If you want to send us an email, you can contact us at clistvillains@gmail.com. Make sure you follow Luke Weeks on Facebook and Instagram, and join his Facebook group, Rare Keys and First Appearance Comics, also known as RKFA Comics. I'm your host, AJ, and you can find me on Instagram, AJ the Comic Collector. Thank you, and see you next episode.